Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour, bienvenue. Ça va? Okay, that's my French done then. My name is Vic Galloway. I make programs for the BBC. I'm based in Edinburgh, but I work all over the UK. I made programs for Radio 1, for Six Music, for Radio Scotland, the BBC World Service. I also write books on music. I'm a journalist. I'm a musician, DJ, curator, blah, blah, blah. Someone that's managed to turn his teenage hobby of being an absolute music nerd into his job, and I'm forever grateful. So I'm going to host this discussion. I'm going to ask everyone to talk a little bit about their career and what they do, and give you a little bit of context of who they are and how they work and so on. And then we're going to discuss this kind of weighty topic. Thank you very much to Sonic Visions. Thank you to Sam and Olivier and the whole team, everyone who helps put this together. I think this is my 5th Sonic Visions now. I'm really delighted to be here. Can we have, just to get everyone warmed up a little bit, a round of applause for everyone at Sonic Visions? Noise. Wonderful. Okay, well, the name of this panel discussion is Technology and Innovation Meets Creativity and Music. When preparing for this panel, I sent everyone an email which had about 8 million questions on it, and I have them all in front of me. But we're going to see how it goes, and we're going to I think it's best if we try and break it up into topics. So we'll have a little bit of introduction, then we'll talk about AI a little bit, augmented reality, virtual reality, and if we can get to it, kind of blockchain, copyright, and how all of these things perhaps interact and work together. As the title of the panel says, Technology and Innovation Meet Creativity and Music. Okay, I'm going to go through my panelists. Furthest, he gave the keynote speech earlier on, Andreas Schönrock. Round of applause, please. Andreas, okay, you've done the keynote, but just tell us briefly, what you do day to day and how you managed to get into the industry.
Maybe because I haven't mentioned it before. Like before being a musicologist and being more on the academic side, I was mostly a DJ in the 90s. That was my main job before studying and producing music, which never really paid me, but it was fun. And now my day-to-day job is partly in the studio, which is just basic, well, not basic, but audio engineering, mostly mastering. Which is part of the time. Part of the time is strategic brand management in musical manners with Hirdis, the agency. And the rest of the time I write papers. I try to think about important things to be treated in musicology. For example, now I plan a paper on authenticity in music and what it really means from the data set we actually achieved in the project. But it's a different, that's my day-to-day.
Okay, and you're based in Berlin, and you have your own Schönrock studios as well.
Yeah. Exactly, Studio Schönrock, yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you very much. Next we have, she's just been doing a presentation on her Orbit project as someone, the artist someone, Tessa Rose Jackson. Round of applause, please. Tell us a little bit about, obviously you've just discussed the
Yes.
project, and we'll probably tap into that and talk about that at some point during this discussion. But how you have Dutch and English dual citizenship?
True. So yes, I was raised basically in a little English bubble in Amsterdam. I didn't go to international school or anything like this, just we spoke English at home and drank lots of tea. I studied music. I also lead a sort of dual life. From the half of the time I have my own project called Someone, releases art and music. I produce all my own music. I compose it all myself, play it all myself. Have a home studio in my house together with my boyfriend, where we produce everything, which is really cost efficient and fun. And good practice in a relationship. And the other half of the time, I am a media composer, so I compose for commercials and for film and.
And are you earning a living as a musician, as a composer, as an
composer?
Artist?
Yes. That half pays the rent.
And
the other half spends it.
Okay, right, great, fantastic. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Harry Ashurst Venn.
Good job.
Yes, okay. Round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks.
So you've done all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Tell us what you do now and how you got to that point, please, Harry.
So now I work with startups at the kind of intersection of music and tech. So I've worked for a blockchain company, worked for a kind of streaming platform that wanted to be something slightly different than what we have. And then at the moment I'm working for a company called Licht, who are kind of making real music accessible for YouTubers and podcasters and influencers and so on. Before that, in a kind of previous music industry life, I started a record label called Double Denim. So we released things by people like Charlie XCX, Empressov, Teishi, a bunch of really cool people, and then managed artists at Red Light Management, which is one of the biggest independent management companies in the world. So I've kind of seen it from lots of different angles.
Yes, seen it from all sorts of different angles. That's fascinating. You must be sort of enjoying watching Charlie XCX sort of go stellar as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think even when we put a single out for her, and it went really well, and she was just really grounded and really nice and talented, and it's nice to see those people succeed, I think.
Yeah, excellent. Well, finally on the panel I have Benigno Perez Carrasco, who's director of CG Lux Productions. Tell us a bit about CG Lux and what you do, Benigno.
Alors, sorry, je vous English, je vais parler en français.
Si tu préfères, mais I'm not sure everyone, I certainly won't understand all of it, but yeah, go for it.
Do my best, good practice.
Donc j'ai un studio d'animation et d'effets spéciaux ici au Luxembourg, ça fait 10 ans qu'il existe. On a travaillé sur une trentaine de films. On a gagné, en niveau collaboration, 3 prix internationaux. Un Oscar à Los Angeles en 2014, un César en 2015 avec Les Minuscules, et un prix à Berlin. Et aujourd'hui, toutes les technologies qu'on a développées dans l'industrie cinématographique, on est en train de les convertir dans la réalité virtuelle et la réalité augmentée. Et donc là, on vient de faire un projet avec le ministère de l'Environnement et du Développement durable. Et on a scanné une forêt de 1000 mètres carrés dans lequel le spectateur peut marcher avec un casque de réalité virtuelle et voir toutes les saisons défiler devant lui. C'est un spectacle de son et lumière. Et voilà, on est en plein développement sur ce type de technologie basée sur de l'industrie cinématographique.
Okay, I got about half of that, but please, Benigno and all my panelists, round of applause. Okay, AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, they're just the next steps, aren't they? We've had music and entertainment pushing technology since the dawn of time, really, haven't we, Andreas?
Yes, I think it's always bipolar. So it's like music or music is influenced by technology, but also influences technology. Well, for example, hip-hop music came out basically of the sampling technique, which was invented actually way before in the 70s, and disco music also came out of this. But hip-hop music very, very strongly also pushed the industry sector of music technique. Like sampling technique and so on and so on and so on. I mean, hip-hop music started out very small, but is now, I think, I'm not aware of the current numbers, but it was the most selling music worldwide, like as a genre. So, and that's a pretty strong influence.
An indication that a kind of a technology that was underground and perhaps not known in the 70s suddenly became the mainstream.
Exactly. I mean, in the 90s, when I bought a sampler, they were still very expensive, like an EMU EZ4000, whatever. I mean, it's useless now because it's all digital in the computer. But back in the days, it was, I don't know, 5,000 Deutschmarks or something, and I could sell it for €1 now. It's like...
Okay. I'll buy it off you for €1.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, we look at, I mean, when putting this together, I was sort of saying, you know, wax cylinder, vinyl lathe, recording on tape, you know, digital recording, multi-tracking, etc., etc. Now we're moving into something that goes beyond all of this. You know, shellac, vinyl, cassette, CD, downloads, streaming. Even downloading is now seen as kind of yesterday's news.
Old-fashioned.
Yeah. So it's music one of the main forces that drives technology, because everyone seems to catch up with the music industry. Would you say?
Everyone seems to catch up with the music industry.
Sorry, with the music creators and the people who are pushing forward the technology. The music industry is catching up on that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually hip hop is a very good example. Especially, I mean, my field of what I see is mostly what's going on in Holland, and I personally feel that in Holland, actually, the hip-hop sector is by far the most innovative of all the scenes. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's got to do with the fact that it was born out of a sort of creative advance, or maybe it's got to do with the nature of that kind of scene or the music. I don't know where that is, but I feel like the hip-hop scene is often very progressive as to the rest.
Just continuing on with that, Harry, do you think that the music industry has actually reacted quite slowly to the technological innovations and the steps going forward?
I think the music industry can be slow to react to innovation or slow to adopt innovation, but I think artists and creators, I kind of see them like the magpies, and they kind of, whenever there's some kind of new tech, whether it's like the synthesizer or the sampler, artists are the ones who kind of end up picking it out and using it in a way that somebody maybe even didn't even expect, which is what I feel like is about to happen with AI. So I think lots of people are like, is this going to take the place of composers? Is this going to, ruin music? Whereas I think that actually we don't really know how artists are going to use AI yet. I think people are only just starting to do that.
Well, let's get on to AI in just 2 seconds. Has music been something that has influenced what you've done, Benigno?
Oui. Aujourd'hui, on essaye, dans la partie effets spéciaux et cinématographiques, d'être plus proche du public, grâce surtout aux projections, au caméra mapping sur des murs. Et ça permet de rencontrer des artistes et de pouvoir collaborer en direct, et aussi d'être beaucoup plus proche du public sur des événements, c'est entre des effets spéciaux et du concert. C'est ce qu'on est en train d'essayer de développer.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Does everyone, I mean, you probably speak better French than I do. Does everyone understand French as well? No? Well, he doesn't, but yeah, some people won't speak English so well, and I really appreciate everyone speaking English here. Let's talk about AI. Harry, you just sort of touched upon it there. Is it going to make composers, writers redundant? AI, is it going to mean musicians, composers, writers, creators are kind of going to be secondary?
I don't think so. I think, like I said before, I think that artists tend to pick up kind of new tech and bend it into what they need at that moment to create. I know someone in London he's an artist called Ashurst. He's got a startup called Human, and he's doing lots of kind of like voice and lyric stuff using machine learning. Calls it machine learning rather than AI, but
generating lyrics.
So generating lyrics, and also he's got a kind of artificial vocal kind of module that he's created with a team of developers, and they're kind of then using those lyrics and putting emotion and like resonance into those to sing them, and then he's creating the background music.
Wow.
Which sounds really cool. Sounds great. It's like, it's experimental electronic music, but it's definitely not kind of stepping in the way of anything, I don't think.
Right. So, I mean, what do the voices sound like? I'm not necessarily asking you to do an interpretation or a sort of...
you should
But
definitely
you
Google
may,
it.
if you want.
Does it
I'd
sound
love
quite
to, but-
robotic? I mean...
You can tell it's artificial, but it has this kind of emotional quality to it. It's quite sort of affecting. It's almost like listening to somebody singing with an effect heavily on their voice or something. I guess, when someone like James Blake layers their voice to the point at which you're not sure where he starts and the effect ends, that sort of thing.
Okay. How are you using AI in the studio, or how does it affect what you do, Andreas?
In my studio work, not at all. No. I mean, there are obviously now these platforms like Lander or whatever with automated mastering and stuff like that. But while my segment is really first of all, a very small segment and a very specialized segment. So my clients, I don't think they would ever consider using an artificial intelligence for mastering, because they know that it's also the human touch that gives the piece its final
So
touch.
do you not see benefits in using
Oh,
AI?
I see many benefits, but not for my mastering.
Okay.
But
So
I mean,
what
the AI I showed before is something completely different. That's for music search. And I personally, to pick up your point, don't think that AI will ever overtake musicians or anything. I mean, the IRCAM, for example, in Paris, they do a lot of stuff. They can now have a saxophone, completely artificial intelligent, play a jazz piece. No problem at all. Also voice, they can do the same for lip syncing in movies. They can create the voice of Barack Obama. It's actually not a problem. But for music, the music business itself shows that it's actually not working at all, especially the live sector. It's ever growing because people want to have the human experience. Well, at least I believe it. That's my personal belief, not scientifically valid or anything. But I don't think, if you go back to Arthur Schopenhauer, if you believe music is the innermost essence of things, it cannot be created by a machine.
I cannot believe that AI could create a piece of jazz. I mean, unless it's just completely random, because to me that would, in some ways, seems like the most human of all expressions musically. You know, to be able to have an algorithm or a set of algorithms recreate that seems like insane, but it's happening.
Well, state of the art is a single instrument in the jazz combo, not the complete thing.
So it's being fed the chords already.
No. It's completely on its own.
Oh,
it's just playing a saxophone.
Okay.
You have like music, a playback, so to say, without a saxophone, without a solo instrument, and you just plug it in, and it's just like whatever. Yeah. It's pretty amazing, but yeah, I'm not so sure of it either.
Yeah. As a DJ, have you ever used
20 years ago.
So you don't use any of the sort of modern DJ sort of
I don't DJ
tech
anymore since a long time. So,
all right.
I mean, all the guys I know that are still DJing obviously use what's it called, Serato, which is not an artificial intelligence, but still a progress in technology because you don't have to carry 20 kilos of vinyl recordings with you anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know about the current state of the art in DJing about artificial intelligence. Well, beat matching obviously is there, automatic. I guess people use it. I wouldn't.
Again,
I mean, what's the point then in DJing?
Yeah. Tessa, when you're either composing for your job or making art as someone, do you use any AI involved in your sort of digital workstation?
No, I don't. No, but I'm not worried, and I'm not worried about it either. It's not that I avoid it actively. I just don't have a reason to use it yet.
Would you use if you know, obviously it's if you hit writer's block or you wanted to experiment with it, is it something that you would?
Absolutely. I think that's what a beautiful thing about creativity is. If you're open to any kind of inspiration from anywhere, it's fascinating where it could take you. So definitely, yeah.
What are the next steps then, Harry? Do you think with AI and sort of music software and music technology? Where are things going?
I think I'm really interested to see how artists end up using AI. I think that's something that we'll see over the next year, 18 months or something. There's a really interesting startup called Boomy, which might blow people's minds. It's in beta, so I don't know how many people will know about it, but I've talked to the founders quite a bit, and you can go and sign up for the beta. And you sign up, you choose the style of music that you want, and it will create you a song, basically, that you can then sing over. And you can give it a title, you can give it some artwork, say your artist name, so anyone can create whether they know how to make music or not. And when I spoke to them, they said that they had sent, I think, 500,000 tracks this year to Spotify. And
is it good?
Most of them, no. I mean, no, it's not good. But they're like as an artist, as a real artist, this is kind of what you're up against.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you're always up against shit.
That's
right?
the other side of the coin.
Whether it's made by people or machines.
Is there a moral dilemma here, though? You know, how some people, I think people are used to watching a live show with someone using tracks from a laptop or whatever, a piece of hardware. They're kind of used to that. Whereas even 10 years ago, people would be like, they're playing to a backing track. It's karaoke. It's not the real thing. Do you think people are becoming used to that now? And the next step is to have people on stage who have no kind of technical musical ability playing music.
But then I don't think people would want to watch that, so there would have to be something to make that an interesting experience, which then I think makes it a creative in another way. Yeah.
I mean, did the Sex Pistols have that much musical?
Yeah, exactly.
Bob
they did
Dylan,
else.
you know, I mean,
it's,
whatever.
You know, whatever. If you're creative and you're doing something that... I do believe that for music to be popular or to do something, it needs to in some way connect with people. If it doesn't connect, then it won't be popular. But I always think it's very interesting to be very open-minded about if you see something become popular and you're like, as a muso, why? Well, then maybe you're missing something. Because if all those people do find it interesting, then maybe you're not quite clued in or you're not sensitive enough to it. That's how I try and sort of get away from my definitely musical snobbery. And
So what kind of ways could you, as an artist, feel that you could use AI to benefit what you're doing?
I mean, this sounds fascinating. I'm going to try it now. I wonder, I mean, I saw on Facebook, my Facebook exploded about 2 years ago because I think that was the first time that AI had written a Beatles-style song. And all my composer friends were like, that's the end. Now we're all going to go down. It's not far off now. And I listened to it, and it was okay. It was kind of, yeah. But I did think it was really interesting. So I don't know, definitely, like you said, if you run up against writer's block and you could just sort of go, I don't know, make me a suggestion. No, that sucks. Next. No, I don't know. There must be tools. Like, I don't know if I'd use it as a full-time thing, but it might be a cool tool to have, like a plugin.
Or even if you're maybe you've written something, you've played it, an auto quantize, an artificial intelligence that will kind of play your wrong notes right with the right swing.
It already exists as quantizing and melodyning and everything. And again, all tools that we all use. And when I realized, like, oh, everything's melodyned nowadays. Oh my God, nobody's going to be able to listen to normal singing because we're all so used to everything being pitch perfect. It's not true. People still want the human touch sometimes and sometimes not.
It's more work to actually get the emotion into something that you're melodyning, right?
Exactly.
Because you can melodyne the whole verse and then you're like, well, the emotion's gone.
Yeah. So in a way, AI, it's kind of already...
It's already there. How does AI work with your line of work, Benigno?
Oui. Alors, nous, on a un projet qui utilise l'intelligence artificielle. C'est-à-dire qu'on est dans le casque, en fonction de son mouvement et des mouvements qu'on fait, le comportement des acteurs va changer. Et donc on analyse le comportement des personnes pour modifier le scénario, pour modifier l'histoire. Donc c'est un projet en développement qu'on a par rapport à ça. Et oui, c'est intéressant d'essayer de donner de la vie à des personnages ou des animaux qui réagissent en fonction de comment on réagit. Okay. Ça renforce l'immersion et ça renforce aussi au niveau du regard, au niveau du déplacement des acteurs et des animaux. On va chercher une immersion interactive.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about augmented reality now, because even before we came on to the stage, Andreas, Harry and I had a very quick discussion. The difference between augmented reality, virtual reality and XR, which is mixed reality. Can you sort of discuss this?
Oui. Donc le AR, c'est la réalité augmentée. C'est quand vous avez une tablette et on voit l'environnement qui est superposé, l'image synthèse qui est superposée à la réalité. Ça, c'est la réalité augmentée. On superpose des éléments qui n'existent pas sur de la réalité. La réalité virtuelle, c'est quand on est dans un casque et on ne voit pas du tout la réalité. On est complètement dans un monde qui n'existe pas. On peut se déplacer, interagir. Et la XR, c'est l'ensemble des technologies qui touchent aussi l'architecture, l'industrie, les médias musicaux. C'est vraiment beaucoup plus vaste, XR. Ça mélange la projection aussi, tout ce qui touche l'imagerie de ces deux technologies-là. C'est beaucoup plus vaste.
Now, you have an augmented reality project. I have the postcards. Tell us, I mean, we saw an example of how it works, but when did you sort of discover the idea to do this, and how much, you don't have to go into the actual how much it costs, but I mean, is this a possible avenue for emerging new young artists to do?
Well, I mean, it depends on who your friends are. What I really believe in is cross-contamination, collaboration, I also said contamination, between different areas of expertise, and especially creative areas of expertise. So if you're studying music and your mate, or your flatmate, I don't know, is studying tech, that would be a brilliant research paper to go do it together. In my case, I applied for funding, which is, I would never have been able to pay for it myself. I'll be completely honest about that. I applied for funding through the Dutch music export. It was a lot of hassle, but I'm very happy that we got it, and that definitely paid for the development of Orbit. So but I know, I think if I hadn't got that funding, I wouldn't have worked with Ramjam, but I would have probably found people that were as up for experimenting and were still young, early in their careers. And you find people that are sort of at the same crossroads as you and have the same thing that they want to invest, which is
So
time.
you were at the point when you wanted to do something different, something new. Then you had a sort of connection with Ram Jam, and they were kind of like, well, we want to start incorporating music into our ideas as well. How much of an input did you have into how the augmented reality took shape?
Oh, lots, because I didn't want it to be gimmicky. A lot of augmented reality also isn't very, in my opinion, not very aesthetically pleasing, and I am a visual artist, so I was very, very strict on, no, I don't want anything to look generated. I want to be, I'm a bit of a control freak like that, so I was really like, no, I wanted to keep it simple. And it was also a very interesting balance that we had to find, because I also didn't want it to be that people like, oh yeah, there was music playing, but I wasn't really listening because there was so much to do. So per song, I really wanted to have like, okay, maybe there's like two interactive elements, preferably things that you can do for a long time or that are just sort of engaging, but in a very mellow way. And so definitely it was a spitball thing that I sort of, at some point, because I got a bit stressed because the date of the first presentation was coming up quick, so I just sort of camped out near their place in Brighton. They wanted me to, they invited me. It's not like I just showed up.
Right, okay.
I was stalking them, but in a fun way. No, so it was very much back and forth, because it's all about, how you look at things. And they definitely also invited me to step out of my sort of musical comfort zone and be like, okay, well, maybe sometimes it's okay for the focus to be on something else, as long as in the end you come back to the music. For instance, adding the fact that the lyrics appear around the edge of the screen was a big eye-opener. I mean, it feels so logical, but without that, there was a disconnect.
Well, explaining how you did it before and how the project works, I think it's fascinating, and I'm looking forward to sort of downloading the app and trying it out on my own phone. But what about the live situation? And are we seeing the possibilities of augmented realities at live shows now, at concerts?
Well, I personally made a very conscious decision not to do it, because I really didn't want to have a sea of iPhones looking at me. So what I did instead is I presented as a loose exhibition before my show, and I try and somehow create the same effect, but with tangible things. So with projection mapping, or like I said, projecting onto a gauze screen in front of the band. So because it's gauze, you can see through it, which means that if the projection will catch, but nothing else will, so you can play with things that look like they're floating. And I'm currently working on the, hopefully, again, I'm applying for funding, so it's not through yet, but I want to create a dome show, so like a planetarium show, in which that would be the ultimate, for me, the ultimate end goal of
so
that.
you'd have projections, surrounding you, above you, etc. Right.
Yeah.
Harry, do you see a kind of progression with augmented reality, with releases or live shows? You must have come in contact with these kinds of projects.
Yeah, I did a show with an artist using gauze. Actually, gauze is really good for this.
So handy.
So we did. We called it the world's first, or maybe the UK's first VR live show. So we worked with some guys in California called the Wave VR, who made a kind of virtual world. Their whole thing is like virtual DJing, so you can come and DJ, and all your friends can put on VR headsets and come and be in the room and talk to each other, and it's a bit weird. But
whereas they could just be in the room talking to each other.
But we did that at the ICA. The artist was playing behind a gauze screen, and he was in virtual reality, which kind of like. So he was like triggering different effects, putting different things in, and it kind of looked like he was dancing. So you had like him behind the gauze screen, like dancing in VR, and then on the screen you see everything that he sees. So like the audience had that kind of dual perception.
That's perfect. That's really smart.
Yeah. So
Now,
I think there's definitely.
how do you, like there'll be a number of artists just in the audience. Can I just see a show of hands roughly? Who is an artist? Who is a musician or a music maker? Okay, so there's some. It's maybe not quite as many as I thought, but I mean, if you want to go into trying to make an augmented reality live show or application that you can use as a release, I mean, what are the first steps to doing this? I mean,
I think Meetups is really good. I think it's meetups.com or Meetup. I don't know if anyone else has used it, but there's tons of, like, in big cities you get meetups of developers who know a specific coding language like JavaScript or something like that. Going along to those, you'll find loads of geeks who have no, like, actual output for their geekery, and lots of them are into music, and you can suggest things and they're up for it.
Exploit them, go!
Or like startups. Startups have all this, like, venture funding, right? For their crazy, wacky ideas, and also no audience or no one to use their technology. And if you email them, they never get emailed by real life artists. They don't know what they look like, right? So if you say, I've got this idea, I want to do that, they'll be like, great, and we'll pay for it.
Wow. Okay.
Really? Do you have some email addresses for me?
100%.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Definitely come and hit up Harry at the end for some email addresses. No. This sounds very straightforward, and I have to go back to what you said earlier on. Is that if you know a friend if you're a musician, you know a friend who's studying filmmaking or app designing or whatever, team up, collaborate. That's the whole thing. They need something to sort of practice on. You need something to practice on, and the chances are you will develop and make something unique at the end of it.
Exactly, because you both have input.
Yeah. In terms of augmented reality, are we seeing this more for the audience going to the cinema? Is this something that film can move into? It seems like the natural place.
Oui, on aimerait bien développer des projets qui utilisent la projection, dans lequel aussi le spectateur pourrait interagir. C'est-à-dire, par exemple, avec sa tablette ou son téléphone, il pourrait lancer des éléments dans l'image et ça provoque un son ou ça provoque une image. Ça, c'est des choses qu'on aimerait développer. C'est en cours, c'est très complexe. Il faut utiliser des outils comme Unreal Engine ou Unity pour développer ce type de système. Mais la première phase, c'est la projection sur le sol, sur les murs. Il y a un mélange de musique et d'image. Oui.
And it's possible to interact with these things with your phone.
Yeah, it's possible. It's very complex, but it's possible. Yeah.
Andreas, I'm leaving you out a little bit here, but do you have any experiences of this, or is there an area that you would like to see augmented reality take more shape or have more influence?
Honestly, I really can't say anything about it.
No,
it's like
very little about it.
augmented
Okay.
reality is nothing I ever been in touch with professionally. So what we do is something completely different from music search. It's an artificial intelligence, so very different. So I really can't tell. I mean, I totally see your point that as an artist, it wouldn't be very nice to use it in a live show because of the mobile phones, which is happening anyway. Most of the
I
cases. But
Which is kind of handy for me because I'm a very small person. So sometimes I've had that a guy before me with like a fucking huge tablet was filming the whole thing, and I was actually like, I can actually see the band now. That's great. It's like a periscope for me.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's, well, for me at least, also horrible. If I go to a live show, I've been to this very, like, super unique guys from Mozambique at one time, and there was the Mozambican community from Berlin only there, and some white people. But it was like a super cool show, but I could not get through them, and the only thing I saw was their mobiles, because it was like a star from Mozambique. Yeah. So for me, the experience gets...
How do you feel? I went to see Jack White, and he bans all smartphones. You have to put your smartphone into a container with a key. How do you feel about that? Are you pro that or against it?
Absolutely. I think it's really funny. I got into this discussion with somebody who very, very rightly so said, the Orbit exhibition originally, I said I wanted it to be an active experience instead of a passive one. I wanted to get people out of that sort of fast food way of seeing new music. And I was also talking about the disconnect that we have because of we're always on our phones, the way we see each other. A lot of my songs kind of discuss a sort of insecurity that happens because we see these picture-perfect versions of other people's lives. And he said, okay, well, if you're so critical of this disconnect, how come you've created something that's for phones? And I said, well, consciously, actually, because I think it's stupid to say, okay, we should all stop using smartphones. It's bad for you and let's stop. No, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. But it's kind of like we've invented chocolate and now we're all really obese. And we need to kind of figure out, okay, chocolate is great, but maybe not for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe find a way to incorporate it into your life in a healthier way. And that's why it does make sense for me to incorporate phones. And something like what Jack White's doing is not anti-phone. He's just sort of saying, okay, for this experience, maybe no, and then later, yeah, you get it back. It's not like he's burning them, which would also be funny. I am very pro getting them out of sort of the natural sort of automatic way of concert, thus phone. I'd like to get out of that.
I think there's ways that you can be creative with it. I think just saying no is a really uncreative way of thinking about it. Like I can't remember who it was. Maybe someone will know. There was a pop star recently who did a vertical stage, so that when you held your phone up, you could get the whole stage in the thing.
So
That's
it
cool.
it was actually designed for
So it had like 3 levels. So it had like dancers on 2 levels, and like she was performing in the middle or something. It was awesome.
Well, let's move on to virtual reality. Are we nearly at the point when you'll go to a live concert and stick on a helmet, or you might not even go to a live concert anymore? You can watch the Beatles in your front room by sticking a VR headset on, or Tupac and Biggie or whatever. Holograms will appear in your front room or in front of you. Is that where we're going now with VR?
I feel like the beauty of VR is that you can create a world that your audience can be in, which I think is what you do at a gig as well. You create a room that you decide what the lighting is going to be, you decide how they're going to feel, whether they can have their phone or not. I feel like virtual reality offers you that same option. Whereas I think the kind of, the VR kind of apps and things where you just put it on and you're watching like a 3D video, for me that's like not super exciting.
How is VR affecting the film industry?
Par rapport à notre travail, on a une approche où on préfère scanner l'environnement, avoir une information volumétrique dans laquelle la personne peut se déplacer, donc dans laquelle elle avance, elle modifie l'environnement. Donc c'est une forme encore différente de la réalité virtuelle. C'est de la réalité virtuelle avec beaucoup plus d'interaction et beaucoup plus de déplacement. Ça change la narration.
Will cinemas themselves change? Will there be any need for a cinema?
Ça remplace pas du cinéma, c'est pas du cinéma, c'est une expérience entre la cinématographie et du videogame. C'est entre les deux.
Okay. And what about virtual reality for you? Is this something that you'd like to take someone into that world and go beyond the augmented reality?
Yeah, well, I mean, for Orbit, I consciously chose augmented reality because it was, to me, I wanted the theme was to add a sort of fantasy quality to real life. So for me, then I wanted you to be able to see real life through it. But yeah, virtual reality is super interesting, and especially, like you said, if you can do it in a creative way and not just like made it 3D and you kind of move around it.
Well, Harry, how affordable and accessible is it to young artists, emerging artists? Okay, someone who has major label backing, plenty of investment behind them, they've already had some success, they can experiment with this kind of stuff. But people who are emerging, who are just starting, and they desperately want to do something using either augmented or virtual reality, how accessible is it?
I think, when we did the project with The Wave, we just emailed them and gave them some music, and we didn't spend any money on it. They didn't want any money, they just wanted to do the cool project, and yeah.
But I mean, these companies will have to make money somehow. So is this yet again? Is it just being brass neck, chancing your arm, going over and contacting people?
Yeah, it's the same approach that you might take to trying to get gigs in your local town, right? You'd email all the promoters, or you'd email the big band coming through and say, "Hey, can I open for you?" It's that same kind of like ethic of like, if you don't ask, you don't get, and send 100 emails and hope one of them comes off.
Now, you were talking about the human experience. Do you think virtual reality concerts can compete with a real concert?
I wouldn't put it in a competition situation. I think it's just a completely different thing. I totally agree with both of you. If you use also augmented reality, even if I don't have any idea about it, if you use it creatively, it's super, super nice. And I also totally agree about the anxiety point. I've seen a lot of anxiety also at INES, our company, from the music consultants when they saw what we do with this AI. They were really afraid to lose their jobs. But the truth is, they will never lose their jobs because of this, at least not in this field. I'm not talking about any other sectors now. Because it will be a problem for societies to deal with AI, but outside of music business, much more in the technology sector. But for them, they are still the reference, not the AI. The AI is just a tool for them to be quicker, to have more time for cooler things, look for cool music, new music, and not tag BPM and so on. I mentioned it before. So I think, at least in the creative sector, I'm the same. I'm not at all afraid of AI taking any of my jobs or anything like that.
No, and to add to that, the virtual reality concert idea, I mean, sure, maybe what you're seeing isn't real, but there's still humanity in it because it's been curated in a way by artists. So technically you are still watching. It is still a human performance, but just using digital tools.
Yeah, you have to think of it as an instrument in itself.
Exactly. So yeah, it's the same thing, really.
For example, one thing I could imagine for myself is like there is a project at Technical University in Berlin about this kind of stuff. They recreate like classic concert rooms. For example, the room in Vienna where pieces of Mozart were first played, and now they implemented in virtual reality. So you can basically go to the opening of Mozart's piece, whatever, 1780, whatever, and listen in the exact same environment with the exact same acoustics and so on and so on and so on. So this is really cool for me, or would be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to turn to you guys for some questions in a couple of minutes, but just very quickly to talking about a massive subject, but a different kind of approach to innovation and technology that affects the music industry is blockchain. And something that I was talking to Olaf about this earlier on. When I have it explained to me, I completely understand. And then when I try and explain it to someone else, I'm completely tongue-tied and I don't really understand it any longer. Can you explain sort of briefly what it is and how, potentially information, copyright, metadata can potentially be imprinted onto a music file, a track, and help an artist, so that the innovation in the technology is actually going to be something that has a tangible effect on any artist at any stage of their career. Go for it.
Thanks for that. Okay, so how many people have used a Google Sheet? So a blockchain is like a Google Sheet. So you have databases, each record label, each publisher has a database of what they own, and the copyright, artist, song title, ISRC code. And at the moment that's held on, imagine like a Microsoft Excel. So I'm Universal, I have my own sheet, Sony can't look at my Excel because it's on my computer. Whereas a Google Sheet, if I was to put all of my data, if I'm Universal, into a Google Sheet and then shared it with Sony, if Sony says, oh wait, I own that, you don't own that, they could go in and delete that and then the record is updated. So if that was shared between everybody in the music industry, everybody could contribute to create one single source of truth instead of what we have at the moment, which is hundreds, if not thousands, of sources of truth. Lots of different databases floating around, which means there's lots of incorrect data, and what that means as an artist is that it takes either a long time to get paid for publishing or something, or you get paid the wrong amount, or you don't get paid at all. Yeah.
So it's in one way massively beneficial just purely because of the transparency.
Yeah, which is also why it's a challenge to be adopted, because then going back, if I'm Sony or Universal, actually I don't want to share my database with everybody else. So that's the big challenge, and I think that's the brick wall that you have, is that it would be really good for artists, but it's the sensitive commercial information that people don't want to share.
Okay, Andreas, you...
Thanks for the explanation. It was, I think, the best explanation of
No.
blockchain technology.
Yeah.
For me, at least. And I also think that not only the financial and industry information of the music companies and publishers is a problem, but also the collecting societies, the collecting management organizations. For example, in Germany, it's a big discussion now about GEMA, which is the publishers collecting management society. And they adapt very, very slow to everything, like I guess in most other countries, I don't know. But they obviously don't want to give their power away. And it's also, then you go to the bigger picture, 1,000 people will lose their job, possibly, whatever.
But then are they doing the right thing for the artists?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know. I'm just showing like the issues that are involved with blockchain. I completely think it will change everything. As soon as there's a real implementation of blockchain technology for royalties, it's like a new game, basically.
How far away are we from that being implemented? Where are we, Harry?
See, I'm not sure that it would ever happen as a
Isn't it
public blockchain.
isn't it one of those wonderful idealistic situations in which, in order to work, everyone has to cooperate, and it's just simply not how
I think you have like
people
this
work.
ideal of what it could be, and I think the more kind of commercial interest there is, the closer, like the further away it will get from that, until in the end, you know, blockchain in music just means that people use some underlying technology in their own databases or something, and actually nothing changes for artists.
But you now have, distributors who take music directly to DSPs, Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, Deezer, etc. They then report directly back to some of the collection societies, whether it be PRS, PPL, MCPS in the UK, and there'll be different ones around Europe and the United States and so on. Surely things are moving slowly in that direction of sharing data, and the quickness of ones and zeros, digital technology allowing this kind of stuff to happen much faster. How can the old dinosaurs keep this at bay?
I think that the process that you described is because of like data standards. So instead of people just sort of making up their own, like, oh, I'm going to write artist title and artist in different things, maybe I'll use block capitals, or maybe I'll use an underspace for like a space. Whereas I think people have all implemented this thing called DDEX, which is a really good kind of, it's a good group of kind of lots of people in the industry kind of agreeing on data standards that kind of underpin that process between like Spotify and your distributor and then back again. And it basically means that everybody agrees on how things should be written in that database, which I think that's like one example of something that's really achievable, helps speed up everything for everybody, and it is something that nobody would want to keep at bay.
Now, I just think about, the publishing industry, whether it be, books, etc., or any kind of industry that's in some way comparable to the music industry. Do you feel that the music industry is at the forefront, or the artist creation, music producers, artists are pushing the technology forward? We started with, surely this is all just new stuff. Do you feel that music is actually pushing things forward?
I think so. I think from the artist part, something like what you've done is great. I think more artists should do stuff like that instead of just giving songs to distributors and...
Yeah, I think, at least I feel like it's happening more and more. It's all got to do with the fact that everyone can upload their own music now, and majors are becoming much less important. It has so many upsides to it because it means that you can create and distribute everything from your bedroom. But the big downside, obviously, is that there's just this massive amount of music being uploaded every single day. But I truly believe in creativity and in creative people, and I think that is the perfect kind of challenge for people to be forced to become more creative. And in the end, I think that's only going to enrich the industry and take us in a more interesting direction.
Andreas, do you see the artists becoming more and more independent and kind of taking control of their destiny far more now than they've ever been before as a result of these kinds of burgeoning technologies?
I would see them more and more independent. Taking control, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure it goes together, has to go together. There is definitely much more independence because the majors are really losing power for many, many reasons, actually. And obviously, I think it already started at Spotify 1 year ago, that now everybody can basically upload stuff, not via a label, just a digital distributor. So this really changes the game because you don't need a record label anymore, actually. Not really. At least not if you don't want to put out 50,000 vinyl records and need the money for it. So yeah, but taking control, there are so many other variables, just like brands and all the other variables, so I'm not so sure. I think it's a very difficult game now. It has always been for artists. I think there were other variables 30 years ago. But it's even more so now, I think. Very complex.
Do successful musicians and artists have to become their own brands, take control of one, the music, the distribution of the music, the augmented or virtual reality sides of things, and ultimately, if blockchain is adopted, that side of things as well? Then we can see the independent artist, being in charge completely.
I think they already are. That's one big part of the game now, being a brand. Also for the big music companies, they are no longer music companies, but actually branding companies. Yeah? The most important part of signing an artist is not the music, but it's the Facebook fans and the YouTube clicks and so on and so on and so on. So it's not really, I would say, maybe sounds hard, about the musical content, but much more of the lifestyle brand of the artist. If he is a lifestyle brand and what he impersonates. So this is already happening all along.
I think it's about building a world for your audience.
Yeah.
I think that every artist should be building a world that their audience wants to be in and wants to be part of. And it doesn't matter what you use. It could just be a gig, a room full of art, virtual reality. Like, all these are things that you can use to build this world that your audience wants to come and be a part of every day. I think that's kind of...
It's all about personality, isn't it? It always has been. And I think it's just a different way of focusing on it. But especially when it comes to does the artist have to do all this themselves? No, I don't believe that. I do believe that you need to find yourself the right team. So you don't have to do it all yourself, but don't go and sign to a label and then hope that they'll do it all for you, because they'll do it wrong because they're not you. I do believe that a way of taking control is by putting together your own team of people you trust and people understand what you're doing. I think that's very important.
And just one brief thing to you, because you mentioned it before, it's about connecting, and I totally think it comes down to that. And it doesn't matter if it's the music connecting, what you just said, or a room, or postcards, or whatever. That's the main part. Yeah. And I think that always has to be human somehow, because where's the experience if it isn't?
Yeah.
So
Okay,
Isn't it wonderful that a tech panel ended up on actually the most important thing is human?
Do you know what? I'm delighted that we end there. We started a little bit late and we have to finish now. I did want to get questions from you guys, but if you've got specific questions, come up and speak to any of my expert panelists. They'll be hanging around here for a few minutes. Thank you very much for watching and listening. You've been an excellent audience. Enjoy the rest of today. Enjoy the rest of Sonic Visions. And please, once again, please give it up for Andreas, Tessa, Harry, and Benigno. Round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very tricky subject. So much that we could have talked about there. We just merely scratched the surface, but hopefully gave you some food for thought. Thank you very much, folks.